Good afternoon to you. Today is World Water Day, a day aimed at drawing the attention of nations to the global water crisis and the negative repercussions of contaminated water on the human species. Do you know that 1.4 million people die annually and 74 million will have their lives shortened by diseases related to poor water, sanitation, and hygiene? And this is a statistics released by the WHO in 2022. Today, 1 in 4 people, which is about 2 billion people worldwide, lack safe drinking water. Globally, 44% of household wastewater is not safely treated. Global water demands that is water withdrawals, is projected to increase by 55% in the year 2050. Today, we're hoping to support the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goal 6, which is water and sanitation for all, by 2030. We just have 7 years more to hit that target, and I don't know how possible that will be with what we're seeing in the world today. My name is Daisy Leo Asikidi, your host on today's edition of Flipside, the other side of the news. It made news this afternoon, of course, that today's World Water Day, but on the show, like we do every other Wednesday, we give ample attention to what made the news and give you all the details, at least as much as we can for the time being. Joining me on the show today is two very special people. The person seated close to me is Professor Mike Omogberal. He was my lecturer in Uniben. Like, it's not like I borrowed the course, a core course. He taught me hydrobiology. He was my lecturer in Thuringia level. He was my lecturer in final year. Good to have you on the show, sir.
My pleasure.
It's my honor. And then I have another special guest. Surprisingly, they share the same name. I have Mr. Mike Ogbevo. So I have two mics in the studio. He's the chairman of Edo State chapter of Association of Sachet Table Water Producers at WAP. And it's such a delight. The first time I'm having you on the show to have you here.
Thank you very much.
All right. Regardless of the short notice, they both made you here today. So we're going to get right into our discussion today. When we were in school, one of the things you taught us was 75% of the earth is covered with water. So there's so much water around us, and yet the UN is saying there's going to be a scarcity. How can we have that much water and people are suffering scarcity?
Yeah. Thank you once again, Daisy. And as I said earlier, it's a pleasure being here. And I'm particularly very happy and proud of you.
Thank you.
That I have to be on this seat, or rather be on the hot seat now, being grilled by, I think it has changed this time
Tables
around.
Have changed,
Tables
yeah.
have changed. Last time you were on the hot seat. Okay, come to the question. Truly, the world, the total land mass of the size of the world is covered with about so much water. There are about 5 oceans in the world, and these oceans covers about 3/4 or 75% of the earth. And so that means 75% of the earth is made up of water. But ironically is that this water are not available for consumption, which is why, and if you probably have heard this ancient rhyme, the ancient rhyme of the mariner, that is water, water everywhere, none a drop to drink.
To drink, yeah.
Yeah, that rhyme was predicated on some sailors who were in the ocean and they were dying of thirst. Yeah, they were surrounded by so much water, but they couldn't drink. So the water in the ocean is not consumable. You have the more than 3/4 of the earth covered with water, but the irony of it all is that what is available to you and I, or to mankind generally, is just about 3%. But that 3% is not even all that is available to you and I. Of that 3%, about 67% of it, of that 3%, are trapped in polar ice and in underground aquifers, leaving just 1% for you and I.
Wow.
Now, if you want a clear case of injustice or inequity in distribution, that it is how that 1% is distributed, that is a case study. Because that 1% is extremely unevenly distributed worldwide. You have some parts of the world, like the southern part of Nigeria, where you have so much abundant water. And then you move on to the other parts of the world, like in the northern part of the country. But then talking about the Sahel Savannah into the Sahara, the Middle East, and all that, here in this part of it, again, these ones, they don't have water. So you notice that at the end of the day, if you go back to history, civilization, cities have been sited in places close to water. So at the end of the day, many of these, these cities suffers scarcity of water, where there is no much available water. What is that available water? It's fresh water. We're not talking about salt water or brackish water, which forms the bulk of the 95 of the 75% we talked about earlier.
Interesting.
So that's why you have water scarcity in some regions and parts of the world.
Okay, I know we had 75% water, and I didn't know it was even so small that it's just 1% that we're all sharing in the world. All right, I would ask you now, Mr. Mike, because you're into potable water production.
Which of the mic now?
No, Mr. No, you'll be Professor Mike.
Okay.
You make water, and sachet water, which we call pure water, is now, I think it has made things seem easy for us. It's everywhere. I spend a lot of money on sachet water, and we believe it's pure. But how pure is this water indeed?
Thank you very much for inviting me into this wonderful, should I call it a talk show?
It's a talk show.
Thank you so much. And now to the question you asked, how pure is the water that we all call pure water? You know, there's this general saying by a lot of people when they say water is water. I remember recently, about a year or two ago, or not up to 2 years ago, where we did a little increment in how much a bag is sold. You know, I was talking to a cousin of mine. He said, "Why would you? What prompted you to increase water? The water that you could just pump from the ground and pump into a cellophane." That was, I'm actually using his words. Why would you increase the water? So I looked at him and I laughed. I said, there is so much that goes into the packaging of this water. We don't just pump water from the ground and send it straight into the cellophane and then cut and begin to sell. So much. It goes through so much processes before it comes out. So going back to the question that you asked, how pure is the sachet water that we call pure water is? It's very pure. It's very pure. Let me use that word, that is very pure. Even though there are some practices, I wouldn't want to, you know, stand here and be looking at, being looked at as someone that is covering for my members and things like that. You know, in every 12, they say there's always a Judas.
True.
There could be 1 or 2 persons trying to cut corners. But averagely, looking at it averagely,
It's safe.
It's safe for consumption.
Thank God I have an hydrobiologist in the house, if you will agree with that. But before I come back to you, Professor, what is your association doing to actually mark this year's World Water Day? Do you have any plans, any sensitization program, apart from being here?
Okay. Really, we didn't plan anything this time around because not too long we had a seminar, a lecture, you know, a sensitization program. And you know, this has a lot to do with finance, money. And we all know the situation of the country right now. So what we're doing right now is to talk to our members. Because as I woke up this morning, the first thing I did was to put up a message on our platform, because the water producers in Edo State were all in a platform, reminding them the need for us to keep doing what we need to do, what we were told, how water production is supposed to be carried out to make it safe for the public to consume. So I did all that this morning, and even my national president of the Association of Table Water Producers, actually also sent a message to the platform reminding us that, hey, what we are into is very important. Water, you know, as Prof said a while ago, the water mass all over the world is about 75%. But when you also talk about the body mass, is like
More
also,
water.
I think 70 to 75%. And so, which means this body is all about water. So when bad water comes in, it becomes an issue to the body. So that's what I actually did this morning. And my national president also complimented it by sending a message to the platform that we must do the right thing.
Water, they say, is life. Water can also be death.
Yes.
As we were talking about the sachet water, I remember I've never had, okay, no, that's not true. I've had diarrhea. I had diarrhea during my youth service. And I actually got diarrhea from taking sachet water. It was shocking. This happened in Kogi State, Asaya camp, around Kaba. And when I left there, I think I realized why I got that. And I've been very careful about what I drink for a long time until my first daughter broke down with diarrhea, and I'm like, we're drinking the same water. What's going on? But we'll get to all of that soon. But Professor Mike, is it possible that an area that has so much water, especially like in Edo State, for example, borehole is everything.
Yeah.
It's almost like an average Benin man's target is built 2 flats, half borehole in the compound.
Absolutely right.
So we have so much water, it seems. Is it possible for that much water to still be there and people will still be complaining of scarcity?
Yeah, it's possible. And one thing is to have water. The other thing is to have quality water. Another thing is to be that quality water also to be accessible to all that needs the water. Yeah, so it's very possible. In this part of the world, especially in certain part of Nigeria, we take water for granted.
Yeah, we do.
Take anything water for granted. But when you move out here, out of this climb, and move to areas in the Middle East, or move down, or even to the extreme northern part of Nigeria, I'm sure when any person that goes outside and come back will definitely appreciate the importance and the value of water, which we take for granted here.
Okay, but should people in the South be scared because of this UN prediction? They're talking about a situation where there won't be water enough for consumption. We don't see the reality in Edo State. You're telling me there will be scarcity when it doesn't take me 500k to bring water from my floor. How is it going to happen? You say water is renewable. I had a discussion a time ago. I also learned it in school where they talked about water cycle from secondary school. So we waste water, we flush our toilets, all of these things go back into the ground. So is that a threat? If these waters will be renewable, how can I be afraid of UN's prediction?
I did say a few minutes ago, it's not the quantity of water, it is the quality of the water that we're talking about. And that quality of water is accessible. My friend also said something that the water is pure. These waters that we're talking about that is so abundant in the southern part of the country, is it really that pure? Is it accessible to all? Again, you are looking at it, probably looking at it from the urban areas. Yeah. If you move to the rural areas, you will find a lot of persons who have to travel or go long distances to get water every morning on a daily basis. So let's not our focus not be in the urban areas, but most definitely should be in the rural. And that is also where we have the bulk of the populace, the people living. And they are the ones that actually really need, quality water, and also so that, more importantly, the water that the potable water for them. Because there are a lot of other indirect, other associated problems when you do not have pure water. Diseases, malaria, typhoid, schistosomiasis, different from these are all referred to as waterborne diseases. So when the water is not pure, it's a very, very big problem. In fact, it's very, very serious. If the United Nations decides to, set out a day to create awareness on issues surrounding fresh water, it means that it is actually very, very important. And if you look at this SDG, the Sustainable Development Goal, it's always 6 is water and what? Sanitation. They go together. So we need to have that one at the back of our mind. Let's not keep in Edo State, certain part of the country, yes, we take it for granted. But the bulk of the people we are talking about, take a look at the Middle East, for example. Talking about UAE, the Arab world, they don't have water. Most of those who live in the desert, they do not have water, which is why you also have conflict between communities because of the limited water. Look at the conflict that has been surrounding the Lake Chad Basin in Nigeria, Lake Chad Basin now for years. Lake Chad Basin 50 years ago was 26,000 square kilometers of water. Today is just 1,500 square kilometers of water. And so you now have conflicts between herdsmen and farmers who utilize the water for their different purposes. It also has to go to the issue of security. Before the whole herdsmen issues took a political undertone, part of the reasons why they were moving southward was because of the availability of water, basically like all year round. Yeah, desertification, aridity, drought in the northern part of all due to climate change. No, they were being forced southward. But let's not go to the issue of security. But I can also let you know that scarcity of water can have indirect effect on these various facets of life, of the five basic human needs: water, health, food, education, and peace. Water is the most important. Its availability and accessibility. Let's not forget it. One thing is for it to be available, another thing is for it to be accessible to all that requires it. Demands for time, demands for water now has far outstripped the supply of water. So it's a massive problem that all efforts need to be on deck to ensure that this water, potable water, let's keep using that word, potable water is accessible to all. On a daily basis, if you don't mind, at the risk of monopolizing this conversation, on a daily basis, you and I probably need about 150 liters of gallons or liters of water to use. When I talk about water now, remember I'm talking about what? Quality potable water, 150 liters. How many persons have the opportunity to have about 150 liters of water? In a country of about 180 million people, multiply that by 150 liters. You know how much water we really need in Nigeria. Here we can have, you and I will not have any problem. But again, for our brothers who lives in the savannah, moving up to the north, there's a very serious problem.
I understand.
Yeah.
When I was in Kogi State during my youth service, I remember River Niger and Benue, so there's water, but we had water problems. The place is quite rocky, so we had potable water problems. So we have to buy, there was an Hausa name they called the men who supply jerrycans of water. Even the jerrycans are using to buy the water. Something else. There was a video of a news report we covered 3 years ago on ITV. It was an underground investigation that was done, and there was this water factory. It wasn't registered under your organization, at least I'll give them that, give you people that one. But they were making water and they were selling it. It had a label. It even had NAFDAC number. How they generated that is a story for another day. Now, the place was so dirty that they had a bathtub, a condemned bathtub, and they store water in there that they fill into plastic bottles and sell. So far, how far has your organization gone in nabbing these fraudulent water producers? Because it might be reasons why you can still take the sachet water you took today with the same name and take it tomorrow. Wahala. So how far so far?
Well, when you're talking about fraudulent activities, I would not say it is peculiar to the water industry alone. It cuts across, and it's very unfortunate that some people. I had a meeting some months back with the Commissioner for Water Resources, and I told him something very specific. I said, there's one reason I will always want to do the right thing, and that is, especially in this industry, water. Because I don't know who is going to take my water. It might even be a family member. And if something wrong happens to this family member after taking my water, it becomes an issue. Are you getting it? So in regards to doing something in nabbing those that we're trying our best, you know, to God be the glory, we've been able to acquire a vehicle, you know, to go around watching. You know, when you see this product outside and you are seeing a NAFDAC number on it, because that's one thing we're also planning to meet with the NAFDAC officials for now, to let us know which of the number is real and which one is fake by just looking at it. Are you getting it? Because we know our members. Another challenge we're also having is what the Constitution says about freedom of association. When you accost some of these producers and say, why are you not with us? What they say is not by force. I don't want to belong to any association. And you see those ones, they begin to do things the way they like without nobody actually monitoring them. Even though NAFDAC is doing the best they can, but there are so many pure water producers. In Benin City alone, we have over 300. In Benin alone, we have over 300. And so when you see things like that, we're actually looking for a way, if the government can as well help us to see how we can all be under one umbrella. Because the constitution of this nation actually supersedes every other thing that one does. If you insist you must become a member of the association, before you know it, they come in with their lawyer and say, you can't force my clients to become your member. So these are some of the challenges that we're having. But when we have, okay, like the other time now, a few months back, where we had a seminar, we called on some resource persons, even the coordinator. It was actually in collaboration with NAFDAC. It was a big one. Your media outfit was there, you know, other media outfits also came there. And we called some resource persons. I'm sure, Prof, you will know him, Professor Iyase. He came and, you know, put us through some of the modern ways of doing things. But those that are not our members, we cannot actually, hold them. We can't pass this knowledge to them. When you call for a meeting, because every time we have meeting in association, one way or the other, we touch on this matter, because that's actually the purpose for the meeting. Outside of our own personal welfare as an association, we also talk about ensuring that what you're bringing out is what is fit for consumption. And at times, you know, we also send people, that is, you know, get a professional and say, we want you to visit this area of the city. The factories that are there, we want you to see what they're actually doing, if they are doing the right thing. But those that are not our members, it becomes an issue.
Interesting.
It becomes an issue.
Okay, but we'll go on a break quickly. When I come back, I have so many burning questions to ask. Imagine about 300 producers of potable water or sachet water in Edo State alone. And these ones, they have to get water from the ground. Then the landlords and landladies in Edo State, they also get water from the ground. The same ground that we put our dead. We don't believe in that mortuary, cemetery thing so much. You bury them in the house. If I bury them inside parlor, if you have your way. Then we also have the septic tank wahala. Yeah. All of them inside these homes, and we're getting water from the ground. The pressure for the groundwater is quite high.
Absolutely.
And is it safe? I don't want earthquake. And also other things we'll talk about. But quickly, let's go on a break. This break, we need to get the news done on the World War Today by Favor Osaro and the UN message for it. When we come back from the break, we'll talk some more.
The report says the world is blindly traveling a dangerous path of vampiric overconsumption and underdevelopment. Its publications comes before the first major UN Water Summit since 1977. Thousands of delegates will attend a 3-day gathering in New York. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres says water is being drained by unsustainable water use, pollution and unchecked global warming. The report, published by UN Water and UNESCO, warns that scarcity is becoming endemic because of overconsumption and pollution, while global warming will increase seasonal water shortages in both areas with abundant water and those already strained. Richard Connor, the lead author of this report, said that about 10% of the global population currently lives in areas that are high or critical water stress.
10% of the global population currently lives in areas that are high or critical water stress. In our report, we said that up to 3.5 billion people live under conditions of water stress at least 1 month a year.
The global water cycle is a global common good. We just don't want to understand it because we believe water belongs to us. We need to invest with that in our minds.
The summit, co-hosted by the government of Tajikistan and the Netherlands, will gather some 6,500 participants, including 100 ministers and a dozen heads of state and government. Favor Osaro reporting.
All right, the program, of course, is still FLIPSIDE, the other side of the news, and we're talking about the World Water Day and the need for some things to actually change. In fact, the theme for this year is focusing on accelerating this change. So, before the break, Mr. Mike was talking about how you go about the erecting a borehole for pure water production, sachet water production, bottled water production. And while we're on the break, we even talked some more about the regulations given by NAFDAC and how they ensure that their members follow it. But I remember saying I want to ask this question, so I will just go right ahead, Prof. With the number of boreholes and the number of pressure we're putting on groundwater, how safe is this for our future?
Not very safe. We have a penchant for trying as much as possible to meet our short-term needs at the risk of a long-term needs. And that is exactly what is happening in almost every facet of the economy. Every house you get to in Benin, not just in Benin, the southern part of the country. And the reason is because the aquifer is quite low, or rather high. You can easily, in Benin, about 180 feet, 200 feet, 200, you already get water. If you even go to the delta, the delta axis of the southern part of it, by 7-10 feet, you really have water. So, yes, so we have a problem now of over-exploitation, overuse, over-extraction of water from the aquifer. Just without even going to scientific validation, we extract so much. And studies have also shown that the rate of recharge of the aquifer is now very low. It's very slow, I beg your pardon. So what happens? You are creating what? A vacuum. Water has been extracted, but nothing is filling the void left in the water. Ultimately, with time, we may not notice it now, but in geological time, it will gradually be what we call it's a lot more like a depression in geology. That's not my area, but gradually begin the mass of the earth begin to sink gradually. And it's already happening because of so much extraction of extraction of water from the aquifer. We have rivers, we have lakes. These are all sources of fresh water. But again, it's not my job to provide a roof over my head and also provide water to use. That's the responsibility of the government. I remember growing up in this city. I don't think any household had a borehole. Over 30, 40 years ago. We didn't have it. This is more like a relatively recent phenomenon because of the failure of government. I'm not whether it could be federal, it could be state, or it could be local. It's your job to provide water. And you go to any civilized client anywhere in the world. You go into their house, build your house, and then they pipe the water to you. The reservoirs are there. We have the Ikuba Reservoir, for example. It was one of the, the one around Ohoro Aziz. It's there. It's not providing water for anybody. People are busy seeking their borehole. But it can come to your question of how safe it is, even the water that comes from the aquifer. Is it very safe? We are a bit lucky in Benin that because the aquifer is so deep, so during the course of a recharge, filtration process that takes place, makes the water become, the water is quite pure. But I shock you. I did the research about sometime in 2007. When we had a flood, there were some parts of the city where were flood prone. Usiloas is where we used to call Tom Line.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a five junction, the University of Benin, Aziz. And then I compared the results. We went there, took water samples from these regions, these areas that were flood prone. Because at the end of the day, remember that the flood eventually percolates straight down into the amount of the aquifer with the contaminants and everything. Yeah, of course, the filtration takes place. Compared to other areas that were not inundated with flood. And our results show that yes, the water from these areas was pure, was clean, but there was a pattern. It was tending towards being contaminated. Yeah, that's about a research I did. That's about 10 years ago. There was a pattern already, but with the control of the flood, around that as is now, I'm sure the situation probably would have reversed. Now, you have a lot of places in the city where you have landfills. There's so much hazardous substances, that comes, and they can also go down and contaminate this aquifer that you and I take for granted that is very pure these days. It doesn't really stop there. We're talking about how safe it is. You will pump water from your aquifer, and it goes straight to your storage tanks, overhead storage tanks. How often do people in the city wash that storage tank? They don't. Some persons 1 year, some persons 2 years, or whatever, they don't wash. But it's actually advised that every 3 months or every 6 months, I think, that you should wash, the storage tank should be clean. If you open some storage tanks, overhead storage tank, you'll find algae, so many, basically floating. And a lot of persons drink this water. Yeah. So why would there not be, these diseases will always be there. If you have to take water from borehole to drink, it has to be coming directly from the borehole. Again, the other factors you have to take into consideration. How close is that borehole to a grave site? How is it close to a septic tank? These are things people don't take into consideration anymore. My colleagues in geology department will tell you, I'm sure even my colleague, my friend here can also, allude to that. There's contamination can take place. This water can get contaminated when it's during the extraction process. So there are so many things that people just build without any regulation or whatever. We just get water, extract the water, and begin to drink. So no wonder you probably had the diarrhea, the very severe diarrhea, during your youth service.
I'm getting even scared to use the water in my house. Now that I think about
I'm
it.
sure we probably will talk about solutions later,
Yes.
how this, then we can profile some
to
solutions,
That's
on
what
how
we're
that's
going to
done.
now.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, there was something else I saw recently. I'll just ask you this before we talk about what can we do. Some of the water, the bottled water, you see distilled water, you see alkaline water, you see, there was even one my elder sister brought. She traveled and came back and brought the cup, insisting my mom must use it to drink water. She called it a water purifying cup, but it was just a stainless cup to my untrained eyes. She would say when you put the water inside and you drink it, the water is pure. And she bought me so much money. But how safe does these things work? Especially that alkaline water and on the rest.
Well, the cup that you talked about now, I'm actually hearing that for the first time.
Oh, it's very expensive.
I have actually not heard about that, and I don't know how that actually
magic
happens.
works.
How that magic works. Then talking about alkaline water, the truth is, the water that comes, like I said, I'll be concerned about Edo State and Benin in particular. The water that comes from the underground, the pH is usually 5.5. That is this part. This part is usually 5.5 or a little bit lower than 5.5. And study has shown that 5.5 is acidic.
Yes.
And for you to have good water, that is the one that is not acidic, that is alkaline, you'll be looking at about 7 point something. So that's why when I started, I said something about, people just say water is water. Is it not water that you just pump from the ground? You pump it from the ground, and you said you are selling it this much. No, water is not water. There are lots of things that goes through to make that water safe for consumption. Because the 5.5, the pH 5.5 that came from the ground, you need to also take care of it to get to the 7 and above for it to become alkaline for good consumption. Because when you drink good water, it shows on your skin, it shows in your body, it shows even your hair, it does a lot, because this body, like we said earlier, is about 70-75% water. So if the water that comes in is not nice, then there is a problem.
Okay.
If I may,
Okay.
yeah, just by way of contribution. There's so much hype about alkaline water these days. I linked it to this wonder drug from the Yoruba part of the country that they call Gbogbonishi that cures everything. So it seems to be alkaline water cures cancer, alkaline water this, alkaline water this, alkaline water this. That is what is alkaline water. On the pH scale of 0 to 14, which is the pH scale, below 7 and 1 is acidic, and above 7, 8 or whatever, it's alkaline, the scale. And so you have water, he said, normal water that you get basically maybe around 5.6, but sometimes from rivers, surface water bodies and all, you could even have 7. Yeah, normal. And then by 8 or 8 point something, you have alkaline. That is basically what you are saying. The fact is this, alkaline water, there's so little or no research on it so far. Just very few research. And as a scientist, I base whatever it is I do, it has to be based on science, the outcome of science. However, there have been a very few studies on the efficacy or whatever benefits is attached to alkaline water. You have what we call the blood viscosity, the ability of blood flowing through the system. Yeah, in Japan, there was a study that was done that it sort of reduces also the blood viscosity. That is, blood flows through the system more. It also assists with acid reflux, lower acid, because the stomach is an alkaline medium. An acidic medium.
Yeah.
So when you take acid, when you take alkaline water, it helps to. So those who suffers from that, it does affect it. But I will advise that if you have to drink water at all, it has to be distilled water.
What's that?
Oh yeah, yeah. Distilled water, it's a purified water from a distillation process. Yeah. In other words, it's extremely very pure water. But if you have to do that, if you have to take distilled water, there are some persons in industrial distillation that have taken place. They store it in their stores, and if it stays a very long time again, it becomes contaminated. Because distilled water is completely free of contaminants such as bacteria and viruses, which you find in some of this pure water or bottle or sachet water that are unfortunately produced from very unhygienic environment. They find their way into the water. But distilled water, during the distillation process, it eliminates bacteria and viruses. It eliminates even the nutrients of magnesium, iron, or whatever that ordinarily would be in the water. But I will ask you, before you jump in there, if it eliminates that, but let me tell you that it will take you to drink about 1,700 cups of water to get the desired dose of magnesium and other nutrients in the water. So you might as well just drink it and then get these nutrients from normal supplements or from your food. Again, we come down to groundwater. Groundwater again is the best if you have to drink groundwater. It's the very best source of the healthiest form of water actually to drink. The purest is distilled water, as I've mentioned. But if you keep it in the store for a very long time, plastic bottles or whatever, the plastic which is stored can get leached. Chemicals from it can get leached into it. Distilled water is also free from carcinogens. Cancer-causing chemicals and all. So I'm just giving you outlining all of them. So at the end of the day, you make a choice. Then you have groundwater. If you must drink, groundwater contains very fresher, clean, straight from. That's why you have this spring water those days that we used to talk about. But if you must drink groundwater, it has to be directly from the borehole, from the aquifer. It doesn't have to go to the aquifer, and you have to be sure that the very regulations, the distances from potential contaminants like graves, refuse dumps, septic tanks, they are well, adhered to, and then water coming directly from that. At least for Benin City, Benin Metropolis, water coming directly from borehole is I would rather recommend that one for anybody.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, we have just a few minutes for the show to end, so we've gotten to the most important part of the show. It's very easy for us to identify issues, but in the process of identifying them, we also learn. But what can we do is like the biggest question now for those who have missed out on all the advice that has been chipped in. Now, Association of Table Water Producers, you're doing your own, you're making money. If we want to go back to the era of water board, it will also affect your business, we know, but it might not. We are so used to sachet water now, we don't want to press it. You give my baby one, she puts her teeth, she cuts it, she has drunk some, she'll go and get another. If you're not following her, she will finish your bag. It's easy to press.
It's like that in all homes. Yeah.
Good. Okay, but what's more? What next? What can we do to ensure that these waters we're buying, maybe if possible, tips you can give to us to identify it for our untrained eyes, so that we don't just buy. I'm not saying you should mention brands, but are there extra tips you can give to us to help us?
Like I said earlier, the regulatory body is NAVDAC. When you talk about giving tips, and my advice is there are a lot of water out there. Like I told you, over 300. Everybody brings his water out. I can only vouch for those that are my members because I know one or two things that we do. to also control their activities. And but those that are not our members, it becomes very difficult. And you said I shouldn't mention names, which I wouldn't want to. I wouldn't want to mention names. I just hope that one day there will be a law, because one, water is a regulatory, should I call it item now? That's what water is, and it's something that we consume. You can't do, nobody does anything without water. There is this musician then many years ago, he sang song, this one came, who is senior, food came, money came. You know, I'm talking about the late Joseph Osamori. Then, though he now gave the winner to food, but everybody knows that it is water. Because without water, one cannot actually survive. But without food, for some days one can actually move on. But giving advice on how to know on face value, which is good and which is not good, is going to be very, very difficult. But my prayer is that one day there will be a policy that will say, oh, all water producers should be under one umbrella, so that we'll be able to check the SSCs of one another.
Maybe we'll also start reporting we'll get a list of those that are registered and start reporting them to NAFDAC to go check them out.
Beautiful.
It's good help.
Beautiful.
Okay, Professor, on a final note, what is the way forward? The UN has said by 2030 they have a goal. How far so far? Is there even hope of achieving this goal in just 7 more years? We always wait for the last minute before we start doing ginger for everything. And what can we do to help us not get to the situation of those in Sudan, those in Somalia, so that we don't get there? Because I'm just imagining the way I use water. I love to swim. Imagine me now living without swimming, without bathing twice a day, COVID-19, without washing water, using running water to wash your hands. We have to manage water. We don't want to get to that stage. So what's the way forward?
Before Prof says something, I think the ones you mentioned about swimming, bathing, washing, those ones are in abundance.
Yes.
The ones that are very in abundance are
the ones with
potable
drink.
water, yes.
Oh, okay.
The essence of World Water Day is drawing attention to drink potable water.
Okay.
Potable water is drinking
Thank you.
yes. So what do we do? First of all, let us start from it's a 3-phase thing. Individual attitudinal change, local or regional, and then we have international.
Okay.
Yeah, but for you and I, what do you and I need to do? Sometimes we all leave things for either the government or others to do it. You and I can start. How about start with conserving water? First of all, start to conserve water or reduce the amount of water you use. Taking shorter showers, for example. If you shower for 5 minutes, you shower for 30 minutes, with the extra 25 minutes, will it make you cleaner? But then what is happening is that you are wasting water. If you conserve that water, it's available for some other purposes or for other individuals. You are washing your dishes. Your tap is running, even when you are washing. Okay, I can see you rolling your eyes. Now you are one of those guilty of that. Yeah, you're in the shower running 5 minutes or whatever. You are done, and then you conserve water. You're talking about washing your hands just now. It's very simple. Guess what? Put on the forceps. While you are soaping your hand, turn it off. You conserve certain gallons of water. That is at an individual level. Wastage of water. You are in your house, within your immediate environment. There's a leakage. You don't fix it for days. Water is pouring away. Indiscriminate disposal of refuse, because we have this mindset that our water bodies, rivers or lakes or whatever, are a receptacle for waste. That is not true. No, because ultimately we need those are the water, those are the sources of this potable water. Apart because we're just talking about aquifer here. I mean a borehole here because that is basically the major source of water in Benin. But outside Benin, people still make go to their rivers. People still go to lakes and all. So at an individual level, again, that's what I've mentioned. And then the government also, my friend here has spoken, basically almost helpless. The association is basically as if it is helpless in regulating its body. That is where government comes in. You and I can't do much about that. That's where government comes in. The government needs to put in, making laws in Nigeria hasn't always been the problem. Implementation has always been the problem of, the bane of this country. Yeah. Implementation of the laws. I'm sure if we check somewhere, there are certain laws governing from the Ministry of Water Resources of Federal Ministry of Water, governing your organization. When the sanctions are in place, I'm going to tell you something. I've always said it, and I said it something like that. I'm a believer in the theory of scapegoatism. And you want to know what that is? It simply means that use somebody as a scapegoat, and then every other person will fall in line. Mr. A, Mr. B, Mr. C, there's a couple of infractions, and then use them as an example. Publicize it for an action, by an individual, this person, or whatever. These were the sanctions. If you cannot do the jail, don't do the crime. Yeah. So for so and so actions, then government should put in efforts in place to ensure that we all get potable water. Yeah. The government really needs to be up and doing, whether local, state or federal. I said it years ago as a growing child in this city. For many years, we never had it. There was nothing like borehole. It's a relatively recent phenomenon. We have public taps. You just get your house, get your license, and they pipe the water to your house. At any time you wanted water, it's there. Why is it not? What is wrong today? Why is it not possible? Why is the Yaro not functioning? Why is the Kuba, what do you call it, dam not functioning? All the different water facilities in the state not functioning. What does it take also to have an automated water treatment plant? Well, that can be you, except you have a humongous amount of money to put a water treatment plant in place. And so this wastewater and all, ordinarily they would harness them again. They are treated primarily, secondary, and tertiary, treated, and then it comes back into circulation. And so there are so many in this way. So there's so much we can do, but I believe that with concerted effort on the effort, we'll most definitely get there.
I want to say thank you to the both of you here, Professor Mike and Mr. Mike. It's been such a delight, and it's been a lot of learning for us today. Government can make money beyond the tax we're getting from the water producers. You can even get money. We can start paying bill for water, and you'll make more. I don't know what's going on in this country. Last year, the team was making the invisible visible, and it was almost like making people know about groundwater, but we are trying to make the invisible visible now. There's a problem coming, and it doesn't show because we're in Edo State, but if we're not careful, we will be stuck somewhere. Right now, we're seriously off track to meet the Sustainable Development Goal 6, water and sanitation for all by 2030. It's in your hands. You can do something. Your family can do something. Your school can do something. The society can do something. We have to put our hands together to ensure that we meet this goal and make sure water is available for consumption and accessible to all who need it. I'm Daisy Leo Sikidi. Don't forget you can get this video on YouTube from later today and catch up on any part of it you missed out on. Bye and see you next week.